Hello and welcome to St. Peter's Law Academy. In this brief session, we are going to discuss what changes have been brought in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, uh, which is the successor law of the Indian Penal Code 1860, which law was being studied by students preparing for the judicial services examination. So let us see, as we begin with our course on Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, let us see how the questions are going to figure from the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and which part of this law you have to pay your utmost attention to, right? But before that, it would be just as appropriate if we cast a look at the coming into effect of the law itself. How has it been enacted? Mind you, the previous law, which is still continuing, in fact, is IPC 1860. Indian Penal Code 1860 is the substantive law governing the criminal law domain in our country. Laws can be distinguished on the basis of either being substantive law or procedural law. So, substantive law, in the very nature of things, contains definition of rights and liabilities, contains definition of crimes for in the case of IPC, for example, culpable homicide, murder, theft, dacoity. These are the offenses, these are the crimes. Their definition is contained in the Indian Penal Code. And also, the quantum of punishment related to these crimes have also been provided for in the IPC. Now, this IPC has served us for a very long period of time. It contains very immaculate provisions regarding the definition of crime and punishment for crime. And that's why very sparingly amendments have been made into this law. But still, a need was being felt on all quarters that some changes are required to be brought in order to enable it to keep pace with the time. And that's why a new model, a new law has been now enacted by the Parliament of India. The BNS bill was passed by both the houses of Parliament, and this bill received the assent of the President on presidential assent was given to this bill on December 25th, 2023. That's how this BNS has come into, the BNS has been enacted, stands enacted. However, this law will actually come into effect. The coming into effect of this law will be notified in the month of July 2024. So, from maybe probably from the 1st of July 2024, it will come into effect. Let us see how the government chooses to notify it. But this BNS is now going to be important area for the purposes of your preparation for judicial services exam, right? Because IPC will no more be there from the month of July. So, you know, skepticism is being expressed, apprehensions are being expressed that this BNS will be impugned before the Supreme Court, citing violation of fundamental rights, part third, provisions of the part third of the Constitution. But I don't think the Supreme Court will have any occasion to declare this law null and void, because this law is most part a descendant of the IPC. So there is nothing contained in this law which can be said to be violative of the fundamental rights, and furthermore, arrangement and rearrangement can be done in the provisions of the law, and that is exactly what has been done. But this BNS is not only arrangement and rearrangement of the previous law; it also contains certain new provisions, right? Like crime against children and children and women have been put in this law in a very new order, new fashion. Apart from that, punishment related clause has also been amended, and community service as a mode of punishment has been now incorporated in the BNS. And furthermore, according to the rising challenges, the crime related to terrorism, etc., have also been incorporated in the BNS. So these are the important changes that have been made into this law, that have been incorporated into this law, taking cue from the IPC 1860. So let us see how it is important from the viewpoint of judicial services exam. It has remained important. IPC has remained always important from the viewpoint of judicial services exam. It is well known to you that from criminal law section, and by criminal law I mean in previously Indian Penal Code, CRPC and Indian Evidence Act. From criminal law area, 30 to 35 questions generally figure in judicial services exam. 30 to 35 questions. Among them, IPC claimed a very substantial share of the question. 12 to 15 questions from the IPC used to figure in the judicial services exam. Now this will be now inherited by the BNS. In fact, now you can expect 12 to 15 questions from BNS in the coming judicial services exam. The pattern or the number of asking of questions will hardly undergo any change. If 12 to 15 questions were figuring in the judicial services exams from previous times, then definitely from the BNS also 12 to 15 questions will figure in the judicial services exam. So you will have to pay maximum attention or very great part of your attention to BNS 2023, because you will be getting the benefit of 12 to 15 questions from this field. And regarding preparation for this paper is concerned, so far as preparation for this paper is concerned, it's not going to be a difficult task as such. You have studied IPC in your LLB course, right? So as I told you that this the BNS, contains the main principles of the IPC itself. The definitional aspect, the definition related aspect of the IPC has hardly been changed. If you cast a look at the murder related provisions of the IPC, the same definition you will find of the crime of murder in BNS also. The same definition as given in IPC figures in BNS also. So far as principal aspect or theoretical aspect of the law is concerned, nothing much has changed at all, right? And so you will have to focus on BNS. Now let us see how this area has to be prepared by you. Let us see the priority areas that which you can give priority to, right? So let us come first to the chapter 1 of the BNS. Previously IPC contained 23 chapters and the BNS now contains only 20 chapters, right? It means the certain of the sections or provisions of the IPC have been reduced into a small bracket. For example, section starting from 1 till 52 of the IPC have now been encapsulated into section 1 to 3 of the BNS. So in this manner you can see that a great many provisions of the IPC have got reduced in an encapsulated form in the BNS, and that's how the number of chapters in the BNS has got reduced as compared to the IPC. As I told you, in IPC there were 23 chapters, in BNS there is only 20 chapters. The same thing is about sections also. IPC contains 511 sections in all. IPC contains 511 sections in all, whereas BNS contains 358 sections in all. So comparatively, BNS is a less voluminous code, less voluminous law, lesser provisions are there. So and the last section of the BNS, section 358, is a repeal clause. It repeals the Indian Penal Code 1860 whenever it is notified by the Government of India in this behalf. So chapter 1 of the BNS is about definition and general explanation. Mind you, definition and general explanation related clause was contained in the IPC starting from section 1 till section 52. Now in this BNS, general definitions and general explanations are contained in chapter 1 of the BNS. Chapter 2 is a very elaborate provision because all the definitions, like the definition of dishonestly, reason to believe, definition of person, definition of you know um, judge, etc., these kind of definitions which were contained in several of the provisions of the IPC have now been encapsulated in section 2 only. In its several subsections you will find a great many definitions running in a serial manner, right? And section 3 contains general explanation. For example, section 3 subsection 5 says that if a criminal act is done by several persons in furtherance of the common intention of all, then each of such persons shall be liable for the offence as if it were done by him alone. So this group liability related section, which was contained in section 34 of the IPC, has now been placed in section 3 of the BNS. These are the general explanations, right? So from these chapters, chapter 1, which contains definition and general explanations, you can expect 1 to 3 questions in judicial services exam. So 1 to 3 questions you can expect from chapter 1 of the VNS. Now section 3 also says that wherever the definition of crime is given in the BNS, that definition has to be read subject to the conditions contained in the general exceptions clause of the BNS. General exception means, suppose a crime is committed by a person of unsound mind, then that person of unsound mind, though he will be prosecuted, he may be prosecuted, but he will be finally exonerated or acquitted, because an offence committed by a person of unsound mind is not an offence at all. This is a general exception. This is called a general exception. Furthermore, if you exercise your right of self-defense and you kill somebody, then you won't be guilty of causing the murder of the invader. So these are the provisions contained in the general exception chapter 3 of the BNS, and this chapter starts from section 14 and continues in section 44. From this area you can expect 3 questions in judicial services exam, right? And so far as chapter 4 is concerned, though chapter 4 contains provisions regarding punishment also, and mind you, section 53 of the IPC contains various forms of punishment, like capital punishment, life imprisonment, rigorous imprisonment, simple imprisonment, forfeiture of property, etc., and fine, etc., fine also. But here in chapter 4, a new form of punishment has also been added, and which is community service. Community service now has also been added as a form of punishment in the BNS. So apart from this minor change, certain other changes have also been brought about, like conspiracy, attempt, and abatement related offences, which used to be scattered, in the various provisions of the IPC, have been brought into one single chapter. So from abatement, conspiracy, and attempt, you can expect maximum of 2 questions. So from chapter 4 you can expect 2 questions at maximum. And so far as chapter 7 is concerned, it is a very broad area, starting from section 147 till section 302. But despite the enormity of the area, despite the longevity of the chapter, few questions have figured in judicial services exam from this chapter. Let us see what this chapter is all about. Chapter 7 contains the definitions and punishments of various types of crime. For example, crime against state, crime against public servant, crime against justice, crime against lawful order, these type of crimes means crime against government and its law are contained in a great many provisions starting from section 147 till section 302. Now this chapter 7 is a very vast chapter, but so far as its importance in judicial services exam is concerned, it has only remained a paltry kind of contribution, only a small kind of contribution is there. As I told you, from chapter 7 means from the chapter related to crime against the state, etc., you can expect a maximum of 3 questions, right? So the idea here, the idea here is to go through the general provisions, the bare act provisions only, without getting into much detail related to its interpretation by way of case laws. Just read the bare act and you will prepare the chapter 7. Nothing more is required to be done. No further analysis is required to be done. Just remember just by heart, just remember them, try to memorize them, right? And this will be the completion of your substantial part of preparation, right? So far as the greatest area from the viewpoint of exams is concerned, that is chapter 5, chapter 6 and chapter 17. Chapter 5 is about crime against women and children. Women and children. These provisions were lying scattered in one or the other part of the IPC. But now these all provisions related to crime against women and children have been brought into one single chapter, that is chapter 5. And it contains these many sections, section 63 till section 99. For example, definition of rape, punishment for rape, etc. is given in chapter 5 of the IPC. And other crimes against human body like murder, okay, kidnapping, abduction, etc. These sorts of crime are dealt with in chapter 6 of the BNS, which has provisions starting from section 100 till section 146. And furthermore, crime against property. So chapter 6 contains provisions regarding crime against human body other than the crimes against women and children. Crime against human body like murder, etc. Crime against property is the subject matter of chapter 17 of the BNS, like theft, dacoity, cheating, forgery, etc. These are crime against property. So from these 3 chapters, which constitute a lion's share of the BNS, and in fact it is important, it has greater importance than other chapters so far as judicial services exam is concerned. So from here, chapter 5, 6 to and 17, you can expect 5 to 6 questions. So in this manner, the whole of the BNS can be covered, and from the whole of the BNS, you can expect, as I told you at the very beginning of our discourse, that from the whole of the BNS, you can expect 10 to 12 questions in your judicial services exams, or maybe 10 to 15 questions in your judicial services exam. So without preparing the BNS, you cannot perhaps give a finality and completion to your preparation for the judicial services exam. In the coming days, we will be dealing with the provisions of the BNS, right? First, we will consider about the general, first we will discuss about the general concept or general elements of a crime, actus rea, mens rea, what are these concepts? Furthermore, strict liability also, because the general principle of crime is what? That an act itself is not guilty. In order to declare an act guilty, a guilty mind must be proven. Actus non facit reum nisi mensit rea, right? So a person cannot be declared guilty unless his mind is also proven to be guilty. So these are the general concepts of crime, and what are the different stages of crime. Further, in what situations can be claimed exception to the general rule of liability, right? For example, strict liability offences are such offences in which mens rea is hardly insisted upon. In fact, without mens rea, without the presence of a guilty mind, a person can be convicted. That we will see in the general concepts of the crime. Furthermore, we will also see that there are criminal acts, but they are not, because they are not done with the guilty mind. That's why the perpetrator of the act is being given the benefit of law. He is not declared to be guilty. For example, if you exercise your right of private defense and if you cause commit a crime, then that will be no crime at all. The general exceptions also constitute the area of the general concept of a crime, and further we will be dealing with the greatest area, which is crime against women and children, crime against human body, and crime against property. And we will be thoroughly dealing with the bare provisions related to definition and general clauses, because from those areas also direct questions are known to figure in judicial services exam. Section wise number will have to be memorized by you. And so far as crime against state and its law is concerned, as I told you, the questions do figure, but very few in number. We will be having a cursory glance over those areas. We will be reading one by one the bare provisions only, in order to find out which provision is important from the viewpoint of judicial services exam. But so far as the classical dealing or in-depth dealing of the topic is concerned, that will happen in the case of crime against women and children, crime against human body, and crime against property. With the help of various case laws, we will be dealing with the whole subject matter BN of the BNS. Thank you. Looking forward to see you in our full-fledged class. Thank you.